All right, y'all. It's been a minute. Well, it's been a whole week, but thought I'd go ahead and get a podcast a go. Doing it a little bit different this week. Don't have a partner with me, so I'll try to be as library based as possible, but still do the show. As life teaches you, the show must go on. And regardless, if he was here, he would just blend right into these topics. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, this week is a pretty hefty podcast we have in store. I've been in limbo. I was initially stating to you all that I would take out the music part and change it up to a little known Black History fact, but me being who I am, and with there being many artists from from back in the day, and even current artists who I would give a nod. I feel as though it's only fair to me as what I'm trying to do and where I stand with music to not to not leave that piece of my sharing or caring with you all. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start with our musical. This week, it's no exception. Many of you know Intervision's Talking Books, Songs in the Key of Life, Fulfilling This, Music Aquarium, Music of My Mind, the list goes on and on. For those who were wondering, what are all those names that I just named? If you are looking at the image, as I always share online, I am talking about the one and only and the infamous Stevie Wonder. That is his music name. He has been a very large impact to the music industry. Fun fact, his actual name is Steveland Hardaway. If my information is Steveland Hardaway Judkins. He was born in Michigan, which oddly enough is not far from where majority of his career catapulted, which is known as Motown Records. He worked, when he first came on the scene, he was more so known as Little Stevie. His key phrase or his key presentation was he did a lot of performances using a harmonica. His drive, his motivation came through Ray Charles. He actually named one of his albums, thanks to Ray Charles, it was called A Tribute to Uncle Ray. Fun fact, I own all Stevie Wonder albums, and that is probably the one album I do not own. So if any of y'all know some connections or some plugs that can give me that hookup on that CD or that album, I would greatly appreciate it. But he was considered to be a 12-year-old genius at his music. He did a harmonica instrumental that many people would know as fingertips. So if you listen to any of his music, just listen for the harmonica. This is also a 2% random fun fact. There's a song that Rihanna did on her last album, and it has a Stevie Wonder feel to it. I've been trying to wreck my brain to find what song did she sample, or did she just have someone playing a harmonica and it just has a similar sound to that of Stevie Wonder. And like I said, he was initially Little Stevie Wonder. He eventually removed the little and then became Stevie Wonder, and he came out with an album, For Once in My Life, which had a lot of hit songs on it. Shooby Dooby Doo Da Day, Met Your Match, I Don't Know Why, My Sherry or More. Like, there were a lot of albums that he dropped that just were just chart drop. Like, there wasn't an album I didn't enjoy. I will tell anyone this, and this has always been my 2 cents. My perspective. If you're not really sure whether you will or won't like his music, and you don't want to get all of his albums, just get at the Close of the Century. Close of the Century pretty much takes each era of his music and puts it on its own album, and it's just a musical as my term, as many people know me, calling it a musical eargasm. Songs in the Key of Life, I think, would probably be my personal favorite album out of his group that he did. And I only say that solely because it was a 2-disc album. A lot of his 2-disc albums were pretty good, but I think this one, you could tell it was a lot of effort that went into him performing that album. So that's why I did Stevie Wonder as my artist focus this week, because anyone who knows me knows I can refer and talk about music all day, but if there's an artist that I always know I can say I enjoy listening to, I would probably say Stevie Wonder is the one. So I'm going to change gears as I always do, and my techie talk is a little bit of I don't want to say an overhype, but it's more so a preparation of Nintendo's lessons. And normally this is, and I'm doing this mimicking if he was here. Normally I'd be giving, my work bro his daily facts. So I'm gonna share the fact. Normally as I'm sharing it with him, I'll be sharing it with you all today. So I share these with you all as well, because a lot of people do or don't know this. Nintendo finds a way to get to their consumers. And when I say get to their consumers, they know what consumers want or are looking for. And there's no exception to that when it comes to the latest release, the latest releases that have come out from Nintendo. If you go back a couple of months ago, the NES Mini was released. And for whatever reason, I didn't purchase one, but I have for personal reasons, I didn't purchase one. But the NES Mini was brought out or released in a minimal stock. And a lot of people, for whatever reason, didn't understand or didn't know why. And I'll be the first to admit the reason that they did that, or as I call it, the PR move, is if you have less systems in stock, it causes it to feel or be observed as a high demand. But sales for it from the initial orders moved, and they did their trend work, but it's more so the next set of systems that come out, and once you consistently see it in the store, as to whether it's really worth what it's worth. So if you fast forward a little bit, we have our infamous friend known as the Nintendo Switch to release. And there was a little bit of speculation and uncertainty as to how the Nintendo Switch was going to go. The first few ad releases and promotions for it gave it its fair attention, and I'll be the first to admit I didn't know what was in store, how it was going to look, or how it would go with the system being released. But regardless, it's here, and we're kind of put in the place of having to accept it for what it is. Nintendo did a lot of teasing with this system because they didn't want to give you specs, but they also want to let you know, hey, this is what it can do. And they turned around and said, all right, here's the visual of the system. So basically, it's the screen. It has 2 controller pieces on the side. They're considered to be, and I don't want to just give them names without explaining to you all what it's all about. The Joy-Cons thing. The 2 Joy-Cons that are on the side of the screen are used. It comes with another control, like it's a controller part that you can just plug that in as a controller and set it up, which is a pretty nifty, not a bad idea. And then the screen itself can be placed into a dock, and you can connect it to your TV. So it's kind of like giving you that portable gaming on the go bit. The big game that most people have been talking about, or that has been more so heard more than anything, is Zelda. That's about the only game that's really caught most people's attention so far because that's the game that is currently active. I had it when I was doing the post about this because I'm personally waiting for it. There's a game coming out called Tetris Puyo Puyo, and I have the link on the podcast if you want to go to GameStop's website to read up on it and see what it's about. It's basically mixing Tetris alongside a game that used to come out for Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. They released that game, but it was like a Japanese version of it, and the name of it, oddly enough, was called Puyo Puyo. So if you are into it and it's your thing, you may want to check that out. A lot of the games that people will probably be looking for are not out yet. Binding Isaac comes out in 2 weeks. If a lot of you don't know about Binding Isaac, that's a PC-based game, but that's one of their, that's a game that Nintendo can get some good profit from. Of course, Mario Kart is making a resurrection because it's kind of been quiet in the community. It's neither here nor there now, but I always think about this with games. I feel as though sometimes consoles, I think, miss their calling because Nintendo kind of missed out on an opportunity to kind of be esports, and it ended up not working to their advantage, I guess. But that's just how it goes with things of that nature. So speaking of nature and the behemoth of the beast, this is a fun story, and I'm only saying it as being a fun story because I never would have realized that something this small would become so big. And it's regarding JaVale McGee and Shaquille O'Neal beefing with each other. So it was an assumption or impression that JaVale McGee and Shaq didn't. Basically, Shaq is upset because, well, I'll give the full story. Shaq does a show on TNT that a lot of people know as it was called Shaq and the Fool. Basically, on Shaq and the Fool, each week, Shaq does different bonehead plays that are done that just don't make sense. What's so bad about it is JaVale McGee is usually a recipient of Shaq and the Fool every couple of weeks, if not every week. And JaVale McGee is feeling a certain type of way now about it because it's almost as though he's actually on a team like with Golden State. And I'll say this because this is kind of a sidebar. When he was in Washington, when he was in Denver, playing for other teams, he really wasn't as much of a factor. Since he's been in Golden State, he's a factor. And the reason he's a factor that a lot of people don't think about is his defense is actually helping their team as a whole. So, he's had a few plays here and there in Golden State, but Shaq do kind of pick him on the low because he's normally on his Shaq and the Fool. But it looked like McGee and Shaq kind of went a little too far with it because it then ended up going. It just went too far right too soon, which literally caused JaVale McGee to get a little bit upset, and it then turned into him and Shaq going to, of all places, Twitter. And anyone who knows, when it comes to Twitter, you have to be careful of what you say or how you say things because it can go too far. So because it went that way, tweets were going back and forth, and JaVale McGee wasn't having it, Shaq wasn't having it, and it just went to the next level. So I added this story in because of of all the sources that you would expect to be participating in this, and I didn't add this image, but I wish I could have, Shaq's mom and JaVale McGee's mom both. Well, Shaq's mom looks at the whole process, the whole scenario as what's defined as cyberbullying. So basically, you can have words with someone, and you can have thoughts and how you feel about something, and that's fine and that's okay. But some of what they say in a lot of their messages, and if you want to actually read the tweets, I will have the link saved on the podcast as well for those conversations. And Shaq, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Don't take it personal. I'm sorry. You trust me. I know I've had some rep and some things happen in my life that have just kind of caused me to go every which way. But Shaq's response after everything was, I have orders from the top to leave it alone. And it said, no, my mama. Just say Shaq called him, told him, stop the silliness, leave him alone. So that's the end of the beef. You won't be hearing about it from my side anymore. Mama has spoken. And obviously, JaVale McGee's mom got involved, Pam McGee. And if I'm remembering correctly, Pam McGee was involved in sports. I'm going to kind of get some research on that, and I may bring it to another podcast. I may not, but I always like to learn about the backstory of things like this. Pam McGee said, he cyberbullied my son, totally inappropriate. Shaq needs to lose his job or be suspended. The NBA needs to make a stand. And Shaq's mom then stated, it's not funny anymore. Seeing the things they're saying to each other, they need to squash this and move on. And from hindsight, it looks like it has been moved on. The only thing that Pam McGee needs to understand is TNT's not going to get rid of Shaq. If you remove Shaq from TNT, I won't say ratings will be demolished, but ratings aren't going to be the greatest. So that's just something you have to take into consideration when it comes to these type of situations. I mean, they both are wrong. I feel like Pam McGee needs to also look at it. JaVale McGee said a lot of things too, so it's the accountability factor. That's kind of the best way, or the number one way to look at it, is the worst thing you can do, but the most honest thing you can do is be responsible. And if you're responsible enough to know you messed up, then you're responsible enough to realize, hey, I made comments that I didn't need to make, and I'm sorry. It's not reputable to me. It's not reputable to my brand, things of that sort. So that's how I'm looking at it, and that's where I stand as to that whole conversation. I feel like Shaq and McGee could have handled it way better, but obviously that's too little too late. But that's why I'm the podcaster and not the actual person involved in the situation, because situations happen with me on a day-to-day basis that are 10 times different. So I'm not going to say running, but moving away from that story. And I'm doing, this was a request with Dimitri. I'm probably going to wait. I'm going to give mine now. He may listen and hear where I stand, and I may change by next week. Who knows? Because we can always run back to this topic as needed. I found an article from a while back, about a month ago. And I'm going to read over who they have listed for these options. And a lot of them are going to change based on recent situations, I'll say. Currently, we're a little over halfway through the season in the NBA. And the nicest way to put it is you always wonder who's doing well in what categories based on superlatives such as Rookie of the Year, Most Improved Player, Coach of the Year, things of that sort. I'm going to do this a little different because I know most times it's like you got a list of people, you can kind of assess who you think is going to win and kind of go from there. What I'm going to do is use the article as a resource as to who they listed. I'm going to look at Sports Illustrated's options, and if I agree with them, then I'll state so and give why. And if I disagree, I'll kind of let it be what it is. So they put the obvious one first, which I'll go ahead and get out of the way now. The MVP race, they have Harden as the top guy, and the underrated or keep your eye close because he in your back, on your tail is Kevin Durant. Now, a month ago, I would have agreed. I would have disagreed to a degree only because Kevin Durant is actually having a better year solely on the basis of his stats still being able to stand out amongst four superstars. So it's just a coincidence that it's two players. The MVP race this year is kind of like a three-headed monster, with all these players all being from OKC and only one of them still being there. Westbrook, Durant, and Harden. Durant would have been my choice and would have been solid in that option. Of course, me being a Houston fan, it's odd that I'm not picking James Harden, but I mean, statistically, Durant's been on a mission, and I think he wants to prove to the league, to himself, to everyone that he didn't just make the move just to be making the move. I got a lot of topics, and I just realized that, so I'm looking at time and kind of making sure I don't fight myself with that like I did last time. But I'm going to say Harden right now, and Durant kind of is out of the race based on his injury, which I'll get into later on. So that's what I'm looking at for MVP. Next up, defense. Most improved. They have their pick is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and their dark horse is Nikola Jokic. I'm going to say the exact opposite. Jokic is actually playing excellent, playing solid basketball. The Greek Freak just made his first All-Star appearance, so that for him is a huge accolade. I mean, that's an improvement on seasons, but it's not like Giannis is gonna improve every year regardless. Nikola Jokic, even though the Nuggets are not having a good year, he's about as close as to what you're going to get for a good player this season. I'm just going to be brutally honest. Sorry, I have to breathe because if I don't, I'll go down right on this microphone. Defensive Player of the Year is mostly Rudy Gobert's to win. Kawhi Leonard has been kind of mixed in his role. He's a defensive stopper in most games. The Spurs are not talked about a lot because they don't really want that limelight in their position, and I understand that too. So it's a different place, and it's a different role for him. Draymond Green could be in that comment. They have listed Kawhi Leonard, they have Gobert, they have Draymond Green. Green could be a good candidate, but if I was to personally pick, I would kind of go along with Sports Illustrated. I'm not just going before I continue, I want to make this clear. I'm not going with what they have listed just because these are the people listed. Most of the races are kind of set as to who's going to win them. Something crazy has happened, like you have to have a season-ending injury. Like I said, I'll talk about that later. But those things are kind of going to be the only way that can affect and impact who will or won't win specific awards. Sixth Man of the Year is going to be funny, and this is my one time I get to be biased. Their consensus pick they have is Eric Gordon. Their dark horse is Lou Williams. Now, of course, this was Lou Williams with the Lakers. Now he's with Houston. Him going to Houston, he has a very, very he has a much stronger shot of winning it in Houston. And that's only the best way to look at it, is something strange has to happen for him to not win it. Looking forward to how they handle his contract next season, but it's kind of Lou Williams to win. Gordon will probably have more time. He'll have more time played solely because by them getting rid of Corey Brewer, they have to spread minutes as far as guards. So that will play into it as well. Let's see. Rookie of the Year. I'm going to surprise people, and I'm probably being very left field with this. And I think it's only because it's early enough, but it's accurate enough to play into where things stand. The SI has Joel Embiid. I won't give it to Embiid only because he hasn't played enough this year. Their dark horse is Malcolm Brogdon with the Bucks. I don't even have Brogdon. My dark horse would probably be Embiid, but my Rookie of the Year right now is probably Buddy Hield. And Buddy Hield is being put in a position with Sacramento to get that position or get that green light, because now that DeMarcus Cousins is gone and you've had guys who, a bunch of one and dones who play for Sacramento on one team. This is the problem, and I've listened to one of the YouTubers who talks about, you know, what affected or what impacted Denver. I'm sorry, not Denver, but Sacramento's run. What really affected their run more than anything is there was a certain point, and this is even including Cousins, where they were picking up a bunch of one and done players, and Buddy Hield is actually not a one and done, so he might be able to kind of stand out and show out as needed. Coach of the Year. I really don't like Coach of the Year as an award, only because most years Coach of the Year is kind of like a shoe-in. I feel like Coach of the Year should solely be based off of who's having the best run or the best record and has got a good management on their team. So in that case, it would probably be obviously Steve Kerr. But I understand too, they try to spread the wealth and make it an equal opportunity to say, no, don't leave any team behind and things of that sort. So putting all of those things into the equation, I would probably say they kind of got it right, because they have Houston. They have Mike D'Antoni as the consensus pick, and the dark horse is Scott Brooks. So I mean, Scott Brooks, the Wizards are playing good. The Wizards have been kind of up and down. They're hitting their stride right now. Their main thing is they just need to get into the playoffs. If they can get into the playoffs, then it's kind of theirs for the playing. Seeing them play against Cleveland is going to be interesting. Actually seeing Boston against Cleveland is going to be interesting. So that's where I stand with those stories as far as mid-season awards. If you have opinions on who you think should be mid-season awards, please provide that, because I definitely would like or love input in regards to that. And I'm sorry, before I continue, I do want to make one thing clear, because this is different, but it's not different. I'm still doing my podcast library-wise, but I picked a different room, and they also have a new system with picking rooms. The new system I like. The room I picked isn't the best, and I kind of learned on that on my own, which is no big deal. But it's nothing to lose sleep about. So just something I got to keep in mind while I'm picking and handling room choices for the future. But anywho, those are my mid-season picks. Like I said, if you have anyone that you feel is omitted or should have been added, or I got it right, or whatever the case may be, by all means chime in and provide that input. So as of March the 1st, the franchise tags have been going well to some degree. I'm going to kind of run, and I'm not rushing these, but I do want to make sure we get everything in there and taken care of. But with the franchise tags being handled for free agents this year, the Cardinals gave theirs to their linebacker, Chandler Jones. My Panthers gave Kawan Short his at defensive tackle. The LA Chargers went with Melvin Ingram at linebacker for their franchise tag. LA Rams did Tremaine Johnson at cornerback. The Giants, based on personal and understandable reasons, went with Jason Pierre-Paul at defensive end. First, on the last two are the only offensive players. With Pittsburgh, it was Le'Veon Bell. He got the franchise tag. And with Washington, it's Kirk Cousins. A lot of people have a lot of questions about that. It's been swirling around and been talked about for a while, so we'll just keep an eye on how that all turns out. But I just wanted to make sure I did give you the franchise tag updates as of right now. More will probably be added as the week goes along, but I wanted to at least get those in the mix. Couple of injury reports to share. Joakim Noah with the Knicks is out. He's going to have knee surgery. He's out for the season. They're not looking at a timetable and making it sooner solely because it's not like they're going to make the playoffs. So Joakim Noah gone for the rest of the season. This is coincidental because they had just let Brandon Jennings go. And I will talk about that update in a moment. Kyle Lowry with the Toronto Raptors, their point guard, has a broken wrist. He's going to be out until the NBA playoffs. They're kind of projecting that unless Toronto does something stupid, that they should be able to get into the playoffs. And hopefully Lowry can come back and provide them the offensive fire, the offensive leadership they need. Because, I mean, DeMar DeRozan is good, but DeMar DeRozan is not leadership-based. He's having he's flourishing since he's, while playing in Toronto, but he needs Lowry just like Lowry needs DeRozan. That's the best way to put it. The 76ers failing again at the trusting the process rules. A friend of mine, I wish I had him on this podcast because he would have literally had an earful and a mouthful to say it of words as far as how he feels about this process with Joel Embiid as well as what they're doing with Ben Simmons. I think Philadelphia, and I have to agree with him. I won't put it past Philadelphia to not be surprised if they didn't know that Ben Simmons won't play this year. I think they were trying to see if there was something that could possibly happen miraculous, and in hindsight, it never happened. So the rule ended up being that Ben Simmons is out for the year, and it's just a rough setup because he was another one of those one and dones. And I'm gonna go back and point out one thing. If he had a more productive if he had a more number-based year for Rookie of the Year, I would either say the guard with Sacramento. I'm sorry, not Sacramento, with Denver, or Thon Maker. But Thon Maker has not been able to get it together for some reason. I don't know what it is. Hold on, because I normally don't do this. Sorry, I like to be on the stuff. And let's see. Sorry, y'all, I don't really have things like this in place. Excuse me. All right. Jamal Murray. Okay, sorry. I apologize. Normally, that's something I normally would not do. But yeah, I want to see who the shooting. Jamal Murray would be my considerable pick for Rookie of the Year as well. And this is no knock against Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram just isn't really in the place to really shine like he needs to. So yeah, like I said, Ben Simmons out for the year. Hopefully he can heal up and be ready for next season and be a rookie again and actually play. It's like the Philly just doesn't get it right. I mean, luckily Nerlens Noel has gone to Dallas, and I'll see if I can get some stats. I'm gonna next week. What I want to do is kind of give updates on players who have left teams and how they look on their new teams. And finally, the big news that really caught me off guard, because this story broke on Wednesday, that Kevin Durant will be out at least 4 weeks with a knee injury. They stated it's indefinite. It's a huge smack in the face with the, and even with LeBron having his knee injury, having Durant go down at this point of the year, especially with the Warriors being 50-10 as of this story, and at 28, I mean, he's averaging 25, and this, now I can give you some stats. With him averaging 25 points, 8 rebounds, nearly 5 assists a game, and I mean, he was pretty much in a 4-player all-star process. That tells you a lot as to having him out will really, I mean, they've lost 2 games since he's been off the floor. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. I mean, we're not looking for them to do the 72-10. I mean, obviously they would have to go 73-9, but this year they're more focused on trying to get to the playoffs than to get to the playoffs and actually win, rather than fighting the battle of getting a position and then having a 1 seed and blowing a 3-1 lead to Cleveland, because that was still a treacherous situation to have happen. So those are all the injury reports I have. I'll be throwing more injury stories. Like I said, I'm going to kind of mix it up and switch things up a little bit with those sports stories. And still in the NBA, we have Brandon Jennings. Since he was released a couple of days ago by the Knicks, the Wizards went ahead and picked him up and gave him a $1.2 million deal, which means he's going to get paid a nice little bit of money to be a backup for John Wall, which is not a bad thing at all. I mean, it actually works out for him. In New York, he had an okay year. I mean, he averaged 9 points and 5 assists. I mean, he did his job. It's New York. That's the only problem. I don't know. But hopefully him going to Washington can kind of help him reshape and rebuild his image and his process. I mean, his image isn't bad. He's becoming a basketball star, but he hasn't been able to solidly find a place to call home yet, with just how his game's kind of fluctuated over time. So going to jump into men's college basketball, 2 topics and we're almost capped. This past week was a huge week in college basketball. A lot of teams had won. Quite a few teams had lost. The biggest loss over this past week involved Gonzaga. Gonzaga lost in their conference play, and now they have 1 loss on their record. They were pretty much undefeated going into this week. By them losing that game, that affected and put a major press into their push for maintaining the 1 seed. Now, they'll still get a 1 seed in the tournament. I mean, you got to look at it. You have to look at their resume, and the resume shows and factors in. I mean, they lost 1 game. It's a conference game, no big deal. They won their non-conference games. I don't think they had too many impactful games that I can think of. So with them losing, Kansas became the new number 1. Kansas can fluctuate wherever on the board, and Kansas is still going to get a 1 seed. North Carolina is 5th right now. UCLA is in the top 3. I mean, UCLA is 3rd on the AP, and on the coaches in the USA Today coaches poll, they're 2nd. North Carolina is 5th. Kentucky is 9. West Virginia is 10. My surprise still is Baylor being number 11. Florida dropped a little bit to number 12. Florida State is dropped even worse at 15. Doesn't really matter because a couple of their guys are going to be one and done, so a couple are gone. See, they're going to the NBA. Cincinnati is 18. Duke is a huge surprise. They're 17 at 22-7. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. I mean, your top 25s are usually shoo-ins for berths, not berths, but punching the ticket to the dance. So my last story, this is kind of going to eat up a decent amount of my time. Sorry if y'all hear that. If you did, my bad, but it's good to know that Tim Tebow is still in the media when we don't want him to be. No, I'm just kidding. Tim Tebow had a huge uphill battle when it came to the NFL. So Tim Tebow is now taking on the baseball side of the media. And the media is going to definitely have a field day with him. I'm going to just put it just like that. He is playing, he's in spring training camp with the New York Mets. And in so many words, they're going to have cameras asking him every single question. And something tells me majority of the questions that were asked or that will be asked have absolutely nothing to do with baseball. They're probably going to be more about how do you wonder or do you think you'll be going back to football? And truthfully speaking, his focus right now is invested in being a baseball player for the Mets. He's 29, hasn't played since high school, and he's pushing to be a major league player. They're going to rip apart all of his stats. His first game, the ESPN and Fox and all those other stations are going to go full-fledged with this. So that is how that scenario turns out and how it goes. But I do want to thank everyone for listening and tuning in. I may have a possible idea for where and how I'm going to be rebranding. I just have to get some outside opinions in regards to that. And I definitely think that this can go to a new level for good reasons. I've been very patient and very humble in getting things where I want them to be with the show. And I know for a fact that there's nothing but greater things ahead with working on this. So if you're tuning in and you've been checking out the show, I truly and honestly do appreciate you in every small way for doing that. Because you really don't have to be sitting here listening to my podcast. You can be doing other things. I'm using this time kind of like to wind down and to cap off because I haven't done one of these in a while, but I want to give some closing thoughts because some things happened personally that I want to address that is just me being me. We always forget when we're not being watched, we're being watched. And sometimes the representation of ourselves can be a lot stronger than we think it is. That being said, don't let your image burn you so bad that even if someone could give you a good compliment, that is ruined right in advance. Because sometimes people carry those thoughts when it comes to reputation, character, personality, all of those things. I know for me personally, I'm very particular about my brand. I'm very particular about my reputation. At first I didn't care about it, but now I do. And I think that's why I've been so harping on my podcast, as well as harping on coming up with an idea to re-image the podcast. My personal story has nothing to do with the podcast, of course, but it just has to do with me as a person. And I don't like to be affiliated with people who can seem like they're okay, but suddenly can flip a switch and then turn into someone they're not. And I just didn't appreciate what I had to experience nearly 24 hours ago. But I'm stating all of that to just say, if you have things going in whatever direction in your life, don't let those things stop you from focusing on what you need to be doing and what your priorities are. It's a little bit of my random 2%, but it's me just getting people to know that I'm going to be who I am, and I can't change that, but I can't change the ways and the actions of others. So with that being said, as I've stated, be on the lookout. I'm doing a lot of things. I've got a lot of good things in store. I've mainly been keeping a positive / level-headed attitude. And on that note, I'm going to leave y'all here. And this is where I'm going to end the podcast because I'm revising the ending to the podcast. I hope everyone enjoys. Y'all take care. Brite Podcast signing out. Peace.